देख लेना। हाँ, so good morning to all of you, and we continue with the various causes for nephrotic syndrome. And last time we discussed in detail minimal change disease, and I told you that the in minimal change disease is mainly majority affected are children. And now we come on to focal and segmental glomerular sclerosis as one of the causes of nephrotic syndrome, also abbreviated as FSGS. FSGS is main cause of nephrotic syndrome in adults. And important to remember is that pattern of glomerular sclerosis is focal. Focal means involving a minority of glomeruli. And what does that mean is, say we have seen 10 glomeruli on histopathology, and 7 to 8 of them are showing focal changes. Sorry, the 7 to 8 of them are involved. Then segmental. Segmental would mean involving a portion of the glomerular tuft. This FSGS may present as asymptomatic proteinuria or full-blown nephrotic syndrome. It differs from nephrotic syndrome of minimal change disease, which we discussed last time, by non-selective proteinuria, poor response to steroids, higher incidence of hematuria, decrease in glomerular filtration rate, and associated hypertension, higher progression, more than 50% cases progress to chronic glomerulonephritis. And once they progress to chronic glomerulonephritis, they progress on to chronic kidney disease. And immunofluorescence studies show non-specific deposition of immune complexes. Focal segmental glomerular sclerosis could be idiopathic focal segmental glomerulonephritis, where we don't find any cause. Then it could be in association with HIV infection in patients, heroin abusers, then sickle cell disease, and at times in patients with massive obesity. Then it could be part of IgA nephropathy, glomerular scarring leading on to focal glomerulonephritis. And it could be part of adaptive response to loss of renal tissue. That is how microphotograph you can just see focal and segmental glomerular sclerosis. Maybe in your histopathology classes you might have encountered such type of slide. Then what are the risk factors for progressive renal disease? In patients with focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, I have told you that 50% of these cases, they pass on to the stage of chronic glomerulonephritis. And what are the risk factors for this progression? These include clinical features at the time of biopsy, nephrotic range proteinuria or massive proteinuria, elevated serum creatinine, black race. Then histopathological features, the collapsing variant. Then in patients who have in addition associated tubulointerstitial fibrosis. Then these patients who progress to a stage of chronic kidney disease or chronic glomerulonephritis, in these patients what is commonly observed is that failure to achieve partial or complete remissions. These terms of partial remission and complete remission, we defined them in our last lecture. That is, what is partial remission, what is complete remission. How do you proceed on to treat FSGS, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. In idiopathic or primary type, once you find that there is subnephrotic range proteinuria, that is proteinuria less than 3.5 gram per 24 hour, we proceed on to treat them with conservative management. And in conservative management, this is ACE inhibitor group of drugs which we usually add. That is ramipril, enalapril. Any of the drugs can be used by virtue of, not as antihypertensive, but by virtue of their anti-proteinuric effect. Then once full-blown syndrome, and that is proteinuria more than 3.5 grams per 24 hour. We give although I have told you that these are poor responders to steroids. But to begin with, we give a trial of prednisolone in a dose of 1 same treatment for 1 to 2 weeks and taper slowly over 3 to 9 months. That is decrease in the dose 1/3 every 6 weeks. Then the third stage is less than partial response. Proteinuria is decreasing, but it is not partial remission. Then we continue same high dose means then there is a situation when there is no response, steroid resistant, steroid dependent, steroid toxicity, early relapse. In such situations, we slowly taper the dose of prednisolone and to achieve a dose of 5 to 10 milligram per day. Then, in addition, we would add other drugs like cyclosporin, oral mycophenolate mofetil, oral cyclophosphamide. And these drugs are continued. Not all the drugs, that is steroid plus cyclosporin or steroid plus mycophenolate mofetil or steroid plus oral cyclophosphamide. And these drugs are usually continued for up to 6 months after achieving remission. If there is complete response, then up to 6 months. If there is partial response, then we continue for 1 year after remission. If there is a relapse post-remission, then again we try with glucocorticoids, that is prednisolone, for 4 to 6 months. Then that was idiopathic or primary focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. In secondary focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, there is no role of immunosuppressive therapy, and we tend to treat the primary disease. Then after minimal change disease, after focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, we come on to membranous nephropathy. It constitutes about 20 to 25% of cases of nephrotic syndrome in adult population. Membranous nephropathy is rare in children, and the causes of membranous nephropathy include idiopathic, that is primary, and secondary to other diseases. And what are the secondary causes? What are the conditions and agents associated with nephropathy. We will also switch on to important causes: immune diseases, that is SLE and diabetes mellitus. Then infection or parasitic diseases, hepatitis B. Then drugs and toxins, gold, penicillamine, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Miscellaneous causes include membranous nephropathy associated with certain tumors and in some renal transplant patients. The other uncommon causes, there are in immune diseases, there are a lot of rheumatological conditions which could be associated with membranous nephropathy. Similarly, in infections, there are other conditions like, in addition to hepatitis B, these could be hepatitis C, syphilis, filariasis, hydatid disease, schistosomiasis, malaria, leprosy. Similarly, uncommon drugs leading on to membranous nephropathy could be mercury salts, then captopril, formaldehyde, certain hydrocarbons. Then miscellaneous causes could be associated with sarcoidosis, sickle cell disease, and certain other diseases. So these are the secondary causes of membranous nephropathy. Membranous nephropathy is most often diagnosed in middle age. 70 to 80% of these patients, they present with nephrotic syndrome, that is proteinuria more than 3.5 grams per 24 hours. However, 20 to 30% of these patients may present with subnephrotic asymptomatic proteinuria, that is proteinuria less than 3.5 grams per 24 hours. As for like focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, proteinuria is non-selective. Non-selective proteinuria means both albumin and globulin are present in the urine. If you remember, I told you that largely in patients with minimal change disease, the proteinuria is selective. That is, only albumin is passed in the urine. And what is cardinal feature about membranous nephropathy is that the patients suffering from membranous nephropathy, they have increased tendency of thromboembolic diseases, meaning thereby that as they are passing more amount of protein in the urine, these patients tend to have hypercoagulable state. What is the pathology? You can just remember there is formation of subepithelial immune complexes of IgG and complement along the outer surface of capillary wall. Important to remember that these are on the outer surface of the capillary wall. And furthermore, in addition, glomerular basement membrane becomes thickened by the accumulation of additional matrix material along the outer surface, often in an irregular or spike-like pattern. Important to remember, leukocytic infiltration is absent in glomeruli in patients suffering from membranous nephropathy. Just a pictorial representation, that is thickening of the basement membrane, then immune complex deposition in subepithelial location. These are microphotographs. Again, once you go in your histopathology classes, that is diffuse thickening of glomerular capillary wall. Then if the specimen is silver stained, irregular black spice protruding from the glomerular basement membrane due to laid down of basement membrane material in between subepithelial deposits. Then immunofluorescence studies show glomerular deposits of IgG and complement 3. Electron microscopy, electron dense subepithelial immunoglobulin containing deposits. Then these patients, by virtue of causing proteinuria, because in membranous nephropathy, always remember that there is heavy proteinuria. There is low risk group, that is proteinuria less than 4 gram per day, and renal function tests, that is blood urea, serum creatinine, they are normal. These patients are treated symptomatically and proteinuria is monitored along with renal function tests every 3 months for up to 2 years and every 6 months thereafter. Moderate risk patients having proteinuria 4 to 8 grams per day with normal renal functions. Again, symptomatic treatment, and if RFT normal, symptoms improve, 24-hour proteinuria decrease to less than 4 grams per day, a regular monitoring is done for 6 months. But if proteinuria is more than 4 grams per day, but still progressively decreasing, same conservative treatment is continued, and immunosuppressive therapy can be withheld. Then these are important regimes. You may not remember the dosage schedule, but you got to know the drugs. If there is persistent proteinuria, more than 4 grams per day, even after 6 months of conservative treatment. And by conservative treatment, I qualified once I was telling you FSGS, we mean restriction of fluids, restriction of salt, restriction of protein intake, then treatment with angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors or angiotensin receptor blockers. And in this converting enzyme inhibitors and blockers, I told you that it is not their antihypertensive effect, but it is their effect in decreasing proteinuria, which is for which these drugs, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors and angiotensin receptor blockers. Converting enzyme inhibitors, commonly used drugs include enalapril and ramipril, and in the angiotensin receptor blocker drugs, the common drug is telmisartan. Then there is one Ponticelli regime if the proteinuria is more than 4 gram percent, and what we do is the treatment is given in pulses, that is methylprednisolone intravenous 1 gram for 3 days. Thereafter, prednisolone 0.5 milligram per kg per day for 27 days. That is 1 month complete, and again the cycle of methylprednisolone is repeated, and such 5 to 6 cycles are usually given. Prednisolone for one month, then 3rd month and 5th month, and cyclophosphamide for 2nd month, 4th month and 6 months. Chlorambucil can also be used in place of cyclophosphamide. Other drugs which can be used, you can just remember the names: cyclosporin or tacrolimus. Also, important to remember that specifically in membranous nephropathy, this role of mycophenolate mofetil is not established. Then after 6 months, if complete remission, then the same pulses are continued for 2 to 4 months. If partial remission, then we continue for 1 to 2 years with dose reduction. Then the high risk patients, patients with heavy proteinuria, more than 8 grams per day with or without deranged renal functions. Symptomatic treatment plus immunosuppressive therapy. You can try corticosteroids in combination with cyclophosphamide or cyclosporine. I again repeating, role of mycophenolate mofetil is not established in membranous glomerulonephritis. So I have discussed with you nephrotic syndrome and the main causes. Nephrotic syndrome, minimal change disease, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, and membranous nephropathy. Of course, all the three diseases, causes could be idiopathic or causes could be secondary. That is primarily primary diseases or secondary to certain drugs, infections, immunosuppression associated with malignancy. After nephrotic syndrome, we take on to nephritic syndrome. And in nephrotic syndrome, there was nephrotic range proteinuria more than 3.5 grams per 24 hour. In nephrotic syndrome, the proteinuria is less than 3.5 gram per 24 hour. And the glomerular inflammatory changes in nephrotic syndrome lead on to decrease in glomerular filtration rate. I have already told you that there is moderate proteinuria, there is edema, there can be associated hypertension, there could be hematuria along with red cell casts in urine. I projected this slide in the beginning of glomerular diseases also, and I am projecting this for you again to tell you the differences between nephrotic and nephritic syndrome. It is very important to remember because at times you tend to get a short note, that is, how do you differentiate between nephrotic and nephritic syndrome. Then onset in nephrotic syndrome is slow. In nephritic syndrome, it is acute. Swelling, that is edema, is significant and much more in nephrotic syndrome, or it is lesser in nephritic syndrome. Blood pressure, most of the time is normal in nephrotic syndrome, whereas most of the time it is increased on the higher side in patients with nephrotic syndrome. Normal or low, then CVP will be increased in nephritic syndrome, part of salt and water retention. Proteinuria, nephrotic syndrome, it is in nephrotic range, whereas in nephritic syndrome, it is subnephrotic range. Hematuria may be present in few cases of nephrotic syndrome, whereas it is present in majority of the cases of nephritic syndrome. Similarly, red cell casts are usually not seen in patients with nephrotic syndrome, but they are invariably seen in patients with nephritic syndrome. Likewise, the kidney function, that is glomerular filtration rate, is in normal range in nephrotic syndrome, whereas it could be decreased in patients with nephritic syndrome. Serum albumin levels are low in patients with nephrotic syndrome, whereas they may be normal or slightly decreased in patients with nephritic syndrome. How do you classify nephritic syndrome, or otherwise, in other words, what are the situations or what are the causes, what are the conditions where you see nephritic syndrome? These include Meningoproliferative glomerulonephritis, then membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, and membranoproliferative could be focal glomerulonephritis or diffuse proliferative glomerulonephritis. Most common cause for diffuse is post-streptococcal infection, glomerulonephritis. Then there could be crescentic glomerulonephritis, which is also known as rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. Then IgA nephropathy as a cause of nephrotic syndrome. Then nephrotic syndrome can be seen in lupus nephritis, can be seen in anti-glomerular basement membrane disease, can be associated with ANCA and small vessel vasculitis. Out of these, important of concern at times is rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. I have told you in previous slide also crescentic glomerulonephritis, where there is formation of crescents in the glomeruli. And it could be type 1, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. Causes could be Goodpasture syndrome, could be idiopathic as well. And type 2, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis or immune complex disease, could be idiopathic, could be post-infectious, could be associated with systemic lupus erythematosus, or SLE, could be associated with NH Schonlein purpura, and there could be other many more associations. Then type 3, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, also known as pauci-immune. It could be ANCA associated, it could be idiopathic, it could be associated with Wegener's granulomatosis, it could be associated with microscopic polyarteritis nodosa or microscopic polyangiitis. These are some of the microphotographs you can see in rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis specific crescents, that is proliferation of parietal cells and migration of monocytes and macrophage into urinary space, and in addition neutrophils and lymphocytes may also be present, and these obliterate Bowman space and compress the glomerular tuft, and also fibrin strands between cellular layers can also be seen. Electron microscopy will show ruptures in the GBM. Immunofluorescence will show linear deposits in patients with Goodpasture syndrome, granular deposits in post-infectious cases, and no deposits in pauci-immune rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. So thank you for today, and I shall be taking we will be continuing with some of these important diseases which could cause nephritic syndrome. Thank you very much, and you can just leave.